Welcome or welcome back to Pewdiepie. I'm Zui and I hope you enjoyed today's video. But before we get right into it, I'm obligated to remind you to click either the like or dislike button, commenting something down below, and of course sharing the video so more people can see and enjoy it. This is very important as it helps with the YouTube algorithm. I want you to know that your help is greatly appreciated. If you have any suggestions or ideas for a story, my Discord link is in my link tree that is down in the description, as well as my Patreon and Ko-fi for any donations you may want to send my way. Every cent counts. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video.
You rarely had a moment like this, you thought. Leaning back, enjoying the silence of the building. A cold, I can't believe it's not Coke fizzy fizz in hand. Such a rarity. For as long as you can remember, you had been on your feet. Your parents were considered lower middle class. Mother worked as a nurse. Daddy worked at a car repair shop. They were just barely able to afford your home. Sadly, because of this, your father made it clear that you needed a job as soon as possible. And that became your goal even as a young child. Just having a job. Moving out. To you, work was being human. You didn't have friends. You didn't have any you time. However, despite all your best efforts, you still failed at everything you tried. Practically wasting your childhood with learning things that when exams actually happened just suddenly slipped your mind. History class, for example, you remembered clearly as day. You knew the facts, your father going out of his way to write small mini-exams for you, that you always finished with a perfect score. But as soon as you were put in that large hall with all the other children from 3 different school districts for this exam, it just was gone. It was the worst day of your entire life that even now you still haven't recovered from. Later on in life, when you already moved out, and had a dead-end office job selling paper, of all things, your best friend talked you into getting a therapist. It worked, you thought. At least, that's what you told yourself. Plus, he was kinda hot. But married, so never mind that. And after a year of not making any progress, he had suggested putting you into an open clinic where you could have group therapy. However, that was something you didn't want as it intervened with your job. And only then he finally understood. The man took 3 weeks of convincing for you to leave that office job behind and go for this very position as the night guard at the Fazbear Entertainment Ultimate Mega Pizzaplex twice rebuilt. Quietly you suckled on your soda. You had settled yourself on a lounger atop the escalators of the lobby. Up until now, you had taken the job away too serious. Or more, there were things always happening. like having to lock all glam rock animatronics into their green rooms before 6 AM, making sure the janitor bots were doing their thing, doing patrols, checking cameras, but tonight, all this was not necessary. The place was clean, and only required sweeper bots. The glam rocks had gone to their rooms on their own. All you did was seal their doors at the right time so they wouldn't leave. This only left the patrols. A night like this made the meager pay for this gig almost worth it. You closed your eyes for a moment, only to shriek when a ringing on your work tablet scared you. Crap. You looked at the time. You had somehow slept for an hour. How? You just closed your eyes for a minute. Quickly you got on your feet. Just on patrol, you muttered to yourself. Pretend like you had been awake the entire time. After all, you had put your lounger at a dead angle from a camera. No one knew you had slept. With your tablet in hand, you blindly started walking. Since all main animatronics were in their rooms, this meant you had no real goal in mind for your patrol. Anyways, it was just a checkmark on your list of things to do. You had no real patrol route in mind, and used the cameras mostly to navigate. Funny enough, this probably looked like you were taking your job super serious, rather than just playing around. Your first stop was Phaser Blast. The entrance was completely sealed, so all you really needed to do was confirm on your tablet that you had checked up on the place. From there, you made your way to Fazbear Daycare. Sure, it wasn't the most optimal route. However, interestingly enough, the longer your patrols were, the better it looked should someone check up on your work performance. Minutes later, you entered the daycare through the employee entrance and took a quick look of your tablet over the play area. The daycare had very little cameras and many dead angles, so might as well check on foot. As per usual, the entire daycare was well lit. The cheery daycare music played more quietly than usual, but that was fine. After all, there was no one here to hear it anyways. But why it was never turned off, you didn't know. But then again, you also didn't quite care. You round a corner into the daycare's food court, when your eyes spotted a tiny humanoid silhouette under a table. Your blood froze for a moment, as for a split second you thought the place was being robbed by a midget. But then, you took a step closer and shined your flashlight at it. Your eyes widened. It was a doll, propped up against the table leg. Slowly you approached it, with a mild blush on your face. This small thing, it reminded you of something. Upon picking it up, you inspected it closer. It was a playtime code toy, surprisingly light. The doll wore a blue dress. It had gross stains on it, clearly finger paint. Annoying but fixable. The closest thing was inside the big play area, so you might as well go there. As you stepped before the stream, you carefully removed the doll's dress. Putting it in the sink, you inspected the now unclothed toy. The doll had bite marks on her right arm. Ew. But it could be worse. There was also a giant hole on the doll's back. Clearly someone removed the toy's voice box and battery pouch. Why was a mystery, but it still was a serviceable toy. However, as you begin cleaning her, you fail to notice a tall, lanky shadow approach you from behind.
Night Guard!
You shrieked and dropped the doll in the sink. With an angry expression, you stared down at the intruder.
Son?
You huffed. The daycare attendant was standing mere inches behind you, his arms jiggling with excitement.
I didn't expect you to visit me tonight!
The robot's facial plates turned upside down.
What are you doing here anyways?
I could ask you the same. You humped back.
Ooh? Why is that?
You scared me half to death! The robot blinked and chuckled.
Well, you are still alive. Plus, this is my daycare, and I have a right to know.
You blushed hard.
Fine.
You turned around and picked up the toy from the sink. The doll's now wet hair clung to her plastic face, as you splashed water everywhere. The robot meanwhile leaned forward.
Ooh, that isn't one of ours. Night Guard, are you taking toys from home to the Pizzaplex?
No, you said defensively. I don't have time for toys. There was a certain sadness in your voice that Sun managed to pick up on. And he decided the best course of action was to annoy you.
Well, in that case,
he reached behind you for the doll.
You might as well let me dispose of her.
Immediately you grabbed his wrist.
No.
No! I mean...
Night Guard! Night Guard! I'm programmed to listen when people have problems. I have an idea. Let's have a tea party. You clean the doll. I prepare cookies and cream and crumpets and tea.
With a flustered face, you continued carefully cleaning the doll, before gently putting her wet dress on. You shook her, maybe a little too harsh, to get most of the water off. Then you turned to the robot. He was sitting at a table with 3 stools pulled up. Sighing, you gave up and joined him. You protested when he snatched the toy from you, but he just placed her down on the chair next to him. Sighing, you sat down before him. A plastic tea can and plastic cups were placed on the table before you. The animatronic pretended to fill yours up with the invisible tea. You grabbed the cup before you. So what am I supposed to do with this now? The robot blinked.
It's tea.
It's air.
It's tea.
You scratched your chin. Whatever.
And you, Miss Polly Poopsie, do you want tea too?
Polly Poopsie? The robot shrugged.
A doll needs a name.
I'm not calling this doll Polly Poopsie. Sun didn't respond. He was practically elated at the thought of you wanting to give the doll her own name. Can we just call her, I don't know, Poppy? You know, because I think that's how these dolls are named after all. Sun blinked.
My apologies, Night Guard. I am not programmed to acknowledge products of rival companies, even if these companies have already gone bankrupt and are no longer a threat to Fazbear Entertainment. Please select a different name for her. I'm begging you.
You looked at the toy. Strange. You are feeling something. Vanilla?
That's a wonderful name, Night Guard.
The animatronic clapped his hands.
Now, I do wonder. You usually skip my daycare on patrols. Not to mention, you're horribly dry. This is the first time we actually talk with one another. Isn't it? I want to know more about you. Why is this doll so important that a boring adult like you would go out of their way to clean it?
Actually, you had interacted a few times with the machine already, but that had been his other half, his other personality, that automatically activated when he was stuck in the dark. His so-called moon face. You sighed. I will need to start a long time ago. This is a hefty explanation.
Night Guard. I don't know if you have noticed, but I'm a robot. This means as long as there's electricity, there will be me. Talk as long as you like, or need to.
You scratch your shoulder in embarrassment, but then you let loose. You talked about your failure of a childhood, the discipline your parents forced into you, the incredible need to perform. As time passed, the robot's demeanor changed. His body language conveying just how serious he took this. And eventually, he even said just like your therapist did, when your explanations became more meaningful. And finally, you came to the topic of the doll. Well, as of this doll, when I was 14, I went to this toy store. Really vintage. They got toys from all around the United States and from really long ago. They were both rare and common, and one of them. You pointed at the doll that by now had gotten dry. Was one of these, but I guess a rarer one. It was made of porcelain. Had still its voice box, and I know how silly that sounds, but it felt like her eyes seemed to follow me. I was enchanted by that, but understandably, not only was the doll expensive, but also my parents only allowed toys that weren't distracting. I mean, I was just a little girl, and they brought me green army men. I still remember them saying, a boring toy is the best toy for when learning becomes too stressful. The robot tilted his head, and for the first time in over 20 minutes he finally said something. It was a question.
What?
You raised an eyebrow. So everything you had said until this point, he understood. How? You could believe his AI was programmed to understand issues like the ones you had. Shrugging, you replied. Because if the toy is boring, as soon as the stress is relieved, you're just bored enough to return to your books on your own. After that, the two of you just sat there, quietly for 5 minutes, until the robot spoke up.
I think you should keep vanilla.
Your eyes widened intentionally. I really shouldn't.
Why not?
You're joking. I'm an adult. You would just collect dust in my apartment. The robot leaned forward and folded his hands under his chin.
That may be, but
He looked at the toy.
I think she should be happier with a caring mother like you. As much as I like my friends, you have seen firsthand what they do to dolls. And if she means that much to you...
You sighed. I get it. If she means that much to me, it would break my heart seeing her torn apart by a bunch of rowdy kids. Sun shrugged.
Well, I couldn't have put it better myself. In fact, I'm literally not programmed to refer to my friends as what you did.
You spent more time with the animatronic. Someone had convinced you to do finger paints. Well, more specifically, he was doing finger paints while you were completely engrossed by the security tablet. checked the cameras of the Pizzaplex. Finally, however, the clock turned to 6 a.m.
Night Guard! Night Guard! It's time for your shift to end,
said the robot, as he offered you the doll. With a smile, you took it from him. Thank you, you spoke softly, and before he could scuttle off to his alcove, you quickly leaned forward, gently pressing your lips onto his forehead. He squeaked in delight.
What was that for?
Your heart jumped, as seconds later you stepped back from him, heavily blushing. He began dancing around you.
Just to thank you for making me feel better.
The animatronic stopped, his full attention on you.
Oh, Miss Night Guard. That is my job. I was made for that. But I do like being recognized.
He giggled.
I love you, Miss Night Guard.
You smiled.
I love you too.
This video was suggested by Coffee Xenon. Thank you for your kind suggestion.